I just recently completed my first campaign, and it ended in an interesting way.
Honestly, I'm fucking sick of fighting trench ghosts. I'm frustrated in fighting them. I just don't want to fight them anymore. Chalk it up as a W. I'm done. Alright, later, dude.
He rage quit.
I, of course, was playing the most infamous sub-faction of the Heretic Legion, the Trench Ghosts. This army is brutal enough to face on its own due to their sheer tankiness, but by the time I got to my 12th round of the campaign, I barely had any scars on my elites, which would have debuffed some of my most important units. On top of that, I had absurd luck in the exploration and skill rolls, granting me some of the best possible upgrades that I could have gotten on each model. My warband got so strong to the point where I was playing against opponents with a 100 ducat advantage on me, and I was still nearly tabling them. I want to make sure that you all are aware that this isn't me bragging here. I don't consider myself a skilled player at this game, so the fact that I ended up going completely undefeated during a 12-round campaign is truly a testament to how overpowered this army is. My aim in this video is to provide a brief overview of the base Trench Ghosts faction and see what exactly makes them so overpowered. Then we can jump into my list and see some of the combinations that made my warband undefeatable. I do have to warn you that if you try and recreate my list, there is a strong chance you will be hated amongst your gaming group, and I do not recommend trying this if you want to keep things friendly. That being said, let's get into it. The main thing that makes Trench Ghosts so durable is their army-wide fear and -1 dice to injure ability. Some stats to keep in mind here: the probability to hit on 2d6 -1 is 32%. If a model has a polearm, as all of my troopers do, then that stat would go down to 17% to hit. Safe to say, it is statistically unlikely you are even landing a hit on a lot of the Trench Ghosts unless you have a +1 melee profile or better. The math gets even worse for the injury roll, since most models in this faction have either a -2 armor or a -3 armor. Assuming the attacking model does not have armor cut or any bonus dice to injure, then the stats for out of actioning a Trench Ghost with -2 armor is less than 2%. With -3 armor, it's less than 1%. If you don't have access to armor penetration when facing Trench Ghosts, you are likely to never kill these guys. At this point, you should start to understand why this faction is so despised, yet they still have more buffs. Ignoring difficult terrain makes them incredibly fast on certain map layouts. Ignoring the extra blood marker for gas enables gas grenade spam, as you don't have to worry about friendly fire from the blast as much. Sarcophagus mines are troop upgrades that give them -3 armor and the ability to blow up. I personally don't use these guys much, but I do think they are viable if you need an objective holder with an emergency detonation button. The two most overlooked pros are the barbed wire banshee upgrade and increasing the limit of any weapon in the Heretic Armory by 1. Having access to a second anti-material rifle gives your opponents pretty much no room for mispositioning, and the barbed wire banshee aura provides very important synergy to the way I built my army, as I used him as a beefy frontline that can soak up insane amounts of damage, while he gives an 8-inch +1 dice to injury aura against any enemy models. This combos well with the gas grenades that are a native -1 to injure, as well as Lash of Acheron. Both attacks have low injury probability, but they ignore armor, so having that aura bonus to offset the poor chance of out of actioning is incredibly deadly. Last but not least for the pros, we have the Heretic Priest riding a tank palanquin upgrade. This model is one of the toughest in the game. It gives the priest strong and -3 armor, meaning this is the best model to carry your anti-material rifle, given his native +2 dice to hit in ranged, as well as his bonus 2 inches of height just by existing. Meaning that you are rolling 5d6 to hit on ranged attacks when targeting a model on flat ground, not within cover or half range. That's a 96% success rate of hitting. The cons do not even come close to making up for how much Trench Ghosts gain. They merely do not have access to mercenaries, warwolves, artillery witches, infernal brandmarks, and soulbound contracts. These can all be accepted as a lackluster sacrifice, as the ability to create swarms of unkillable troopers with gas grenades is just as equal, if not more valuable, than the models you're losing out on. The brandmarks and soulbound contracts are unnecessary given the innate tankiness we discussed earlier. The only meaningful nerf is that every model's dash distance is halved, although the amount of range that they have late game combined with moving through difficult terrain with no penalty offsets the dash penalty quite a bit. Having access to both infinite armor cut and the tankiest units in the game is a recipe for a horrifying battle for any opponent. Now that you have a basic understanding of what makes Trench Ghosts so horrible to deal with, let me show you how I made them completely unbeatable in my campaign. Leading my elites, the Heretic Priest is upgraded with the Tank on Palanquin bonus, as we discussed before, giving him -3 armor, the strong keyword, and the 2-inch height bonus. Deadly in melee and ranged, he is equipped with a Blasphemous Staff for the bonus on his Puppet Master, as well as Hellblade for raw damage. For his ranged option, he is a cross-map sniper with a 42-inch range on his AMR, giving it the assault keyword so he can melee after shooting with it. In addition, he ignores cover and long range penalties. He also benefits from Sniper's Nest, giving him a +2 dice to his shooting from height bonus instead of the normal +1. This is especially effective on him since he is always benefiting from that 2-inch height bonus when shooting at a target from equal height. With all of these bonuses combined, his ranged attacks hit with a 98% chance of success. The tankiness alone made him an unstoppable force in melee, but getting some of the best ranged skills alongside the AMR makes him a triple threat monster. I opted for the Banshee over the Chorister as I felt the synergy with the gas grenades and his aura would prove fruitful. That ended up being true, but he accomplished so much more than I could have hoped for. He is equipped with the Mark of Cain, dealing equal blood markers to the enemy that inflicted them onto him. He also was granted Tough through Saint's Reliquary, in addition to his -3 armor, making him just as tanky as the Heretic Priest. His parry, stand firm, and hard as nails skill only makes him even more durable. He excels in melee combat, getting 2d6 plus 5 dice to his injury roll due to the Executioner's Axe, Strength of Samson, Lock of Samson's Hair, and his own aura. A deadly injury roll that he can swing up to 4 times given his champion ability and the ability from the Executioner's Axe. This model suffered 2 scars, both of which benefited him. He was the luckiest and deadliest model in my army. My first trooper turned elite ended up being a formidable force in melee. Wielding a sacrificial knife, he cut through armor like butter alongside the Strength of Samson injury bonus. With melee proficiency plus the Legionnaire bonus, he has a 2d6 plus 2 to hit in melee, giving him just as good odds to hit as the Banshee. He is quite tanky with his -3 armor and the hard as nails skill. The only scar he suffered ended up being pretty insignificant, as it wasn't that big of a deal to deploy him first. The second elite trooper is just a watered down version of the first. There are some slight differences in melee skills, but they are equipped just the same with a sack knife and -3 armor. The final elite trooper wields the Lash of Acheron Patron Saint ability. He is equipped with a Blasphemous Staff, accomplishing the Lash of Acheron action with a 2d6 plus 1. Combining Lash with the aura of the Banshee results in an 82% chance to hit and a 52% chance to wound, ignoring line of sight and ignoring armor. Unfortunately, he suffered a leg wound, making him my slowest model in the warband, but he was still quite useful at times. My last elite is an anointed that I promoted late in the campaign. I simply gave him a battlefield title, increasing the limit of the AMR by 1, as well as a sniper scope so he ignores the penalty for long range. He is a simple yet effective model, as he often sits in the back line and looks down firing lanes the entire game, picking off easy targets when given the opportunity. The bread and butter of the infantry, the Heretic Troopers. All 9 of these guys are kitted the exact same way. polearm, -2 armor, and gas grenades. The idea is to swarm enemies with gas grenade spam, likely hitting half of the time. When the grenade hits, even just a blood marker will turn into 2 with the gas rule, and on many occasions they got lucky and plucked off some key units for minimal value. The trick is to spam gas grenades to farm blood markers, then use those blood markers to make additional gas grenade damage better. That way, when you spend 2 blood markers, making the roll 2d6 plus 1 to injure, you have a 52% chance to out of action. And the odds only get better the more spamming you do, because those blood markers come fast if your opponent can't ignore them. The polearm is to make hitting them even harder, as they are already at a -1 to hit because of fear, but after being charged, they will be at a -2 dice to hit for the entire turn, not just the activation in which they were charged. They are tanky, cheap little guys that are deadly in numbers, but also double as a beefy objective holder. To round out my firing squad, I have an infantry level anointed equipped with a 3rd anti-material rifle, and a sniper scope. He is identical to his elite counterpart in the way that he shoots. Just to be clear, he is getting the 3rd AMR due to the Trench Ghost sub-faction rule, where I increase the limit by 1, making it a total of 3 AMRs in my army. Having 3 AMRs gave my opponent little wiggle room for error when placing models. If someone was left out of cover, it was game over for that guy. Last but not least, we have my most beloved model of the bunch, the Homunculus. I acquired this friendly guy via the Book of Golems at the end of my 10th match in the campaign. He is upgraded with human hands, granting him access to my faction's arsenal, inhuman strength, allowing him to carry a greatsword in one hand with a +1 in melee, an additional arm, letting him hold a regular sword and shield combo, and Hawkeyes, giving him a +1 in ranged where he wields an automatic shotgun. He mainly spends his time alongside the barbed wire Banshee, adding lethal damage with his aura and providing a deadly combo charge against beefy units. Nothing could stand against these two in melee. I'm sure some of you watching may say, "Oh, you're so sweaty," or "You cheated on your skill rolls," and honestly, I don't blame you for thinking either of those things. I got some of the best possible skills I could have gotten on my most important models. I don't know how much this means on the internet, but I promise on everything unholy and on the life of my dear Homunculus that this was sanctioned, by the book, honest rolling. To answer for the sweaty part, yeah, it's a toxic ass list, but it was my first army, so cut me a little slack. By the end of the campaign, my total losses amounted to about 11 models. This army steamrolled every opponent I came across. At a point, I had to start apologizing in advance to my opponents before the battle even began. I do not feel accomplished. I do not feel like a winner. I look through my past victories and feel hollow. One could say that I feel like a ghost of my former self. Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching.